I'm in Shenandoah National Park, and this is US Route 211, and the hairpin turn is up there, which is the trailhead for Pass Mountain Trail. Here's the parking area. There's the blue bomber, and we're going to close up the bomber and go up here and get on Pass Mountain Trail. It's going to be a similar hike to the last one I posted before Christmas. And we're going to head on up Pass Mountain to a saddle and then turn left. And I'm going to explore the western end of Andrew Clark's property up here. I'll go through all that when I do the map talk. And the elevation here is 1,400 feet. Alrighty, well here's the Pass Mountain Trailhead. Here's the hairpin turn with the guardrails. You can see some of them have been replaced. Guardrails versus cars. And the parking is right down there around the turn. So we're going to get on Pass Mountain Trail and start climbing the mountain. The total climb is about 1,000 vertical feet this time, and about half of it will get me up to the saddle, and then we make a left and got about 500 more feet to climb. Seven-tenths of a mile into my hike, I'm up to 1,780 feet, and this is the saddle area. I gave it a waypoint oven top 0. Down that way is 211, and really here the only maintained trail from here is when you come up, take a left. That's the way we're going to go. That way in just a second. There's some abandoned trails up here. This goes over the top of the saddle right there and then down into Butterwood Branch. I've got another hike planned for down there. This trail here heads up to the top of Oven Top. I followed this up as far as I could until the mountain laurel got so thick I couldn't even push through it up there. That's crazy. There's nothing up there that I can tell. And back down to 211. So we're gonna head this way and keep climbing the mountain. Now starting here, this is the western extent of Andrew Clark's property. So the rest of this hike off to my left is going to be Andrew Clark's property. He had some hundreds of acres up here. I'll have to look it up. I'm heading over to the eastern, or excuse me, this is the eastern end of his property here. I'm going to be heading over to the western end because I think there's a there was a tenement house on the western end. The tenement house is listed in the appraisal. And from looking at the old maps and some of the LiDAR images, I think I know where to go. So we're going to head up that way. I pushed in here just a short distance to show you this. This is the Clark Homestead spring. You can see over there on the opposite side where they had to dig in a little bit, and they armored it up with rock. This side over here, well, you can't tell, but I think there was a road that came through here, up to here, to give them access to this. And according to the appraisal, it had a roof over it. And then the overflow goes down that way and across the trail and down that side of the mountain over there. And looking at it, it's still running after all these years, more than 100 years. So One 1.25 miles into my hike. The elevation is 2,040 feet. And let's see, that's the way I came from. And going to continue on climbing past mountain this way. But I just stopped here to point out the last video I posted was me hiking down the side of the mountain over there, Huffman Homestead. I found it, but I didn't find the family cemetery. I looked around to the east, like it said in Darwin Lambert's book, but I didn't find it there. But then one of my subscribers said that he found it, and it wasn't to the east. It was more like the northwest, or even the north, up on a ridge. So one of these days I want to go back and take a look at that. But today's hike, we got to continue on up this way. Oh, I don't know, probably another quarter of a mile. Well, I found the driveway. Let's see, 1.7 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 2260. That's the way I came from, climbing up the mountain. And right here, you'll notice that it's all armored up and it's making a sweeping turn into the tenant home site this way. And then this way continues on up to the Pass Mountain Hut. But this is as far as I'm going now. I'm going to go in here and explore and see. I saw some things on LiDAR that match up with the old maps pretty well. So I'm going to go in here and see if I can find any walls, rock piles, etc. Well, I'm standing at one of my waypoints, which is kind of this depression in the ground, and next to this great big tree. And the driveway continues on down this way. So I'm going to dial up where there was two different LiDAR figures I saw down here. I'm going to dial up the closest one, which is about 1/10 of a mile further. And we'll see what we can find if I can get down there. It's been kind of hard to push through there's a lot of mountain laurel through here. That stuff gets really, really thick and hard to push through. But so far, I've been able to make it. I might have to go wide a little bit sometimes to get around it. Well, I'm following the driveway. That's looking back the way I came, heading uphill. Easier said than done. There's a lot of mountain laurel through there, and now all of a sudden I'm in, look at this, it's a lot more open. That's the high side of the road. Here's the low side there. And according to my GPS, I got about another 250 feet. More or less in that direction to get to my first LiDAR figure. Let's see what we can find. .9 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 2230, and the first LiDAR figure I saw on the map was down that way from where I'm standing in the roadway, and it's about 70 or 80 feet down that way into the nasty, and the sun's out pretty bright. I don't see anything down there, but there's something down there for sure. Because it's on the LiDAR, it matches up with the old map from like 1930 or something. But the only way you're going to get down in there is to bring a crew with machetes and thorn-proof clothing. So I'm not going down in there. Now I'm standing in the road. Let's see. I don't know if you can make that out, but there's the road. There, it's armored up. That's the low side. Over here's the high side. That's the way I came from. And then I'll just do a 360. That area over there is fairly flat. And then it starts to slope down to where the LiDAR figures were. And then here's the road continuing on this direction. You can see the high side armored up there and the low side over here. And the other LiDAR figures over this way, about 200 feet. I'm going to wander over here, and maybe it's more hospitable over this way. Let's take a look. Okay, I'm getting close to my second LiDAR figure, and I'm noticing up there's a lot of terracing going on. See, I don't know if you can see that stone wall up there. So I'm going to climb up there and take a look at that. That's probably that's probably my second LiDAR figure. Here's the first thing I saw was this rock pile right here. But that's kid stuff compared to up there. So let's go up there and take a look at the big boy rock pile. Okay, well, here's a little closer look at this rock wall. When I get up on top of it, hopefully I'll be able to tell whether it looks like just terracing or whether could be a road up through there. It's got a nice southern exposure, so if you were growing something up there, apple trees or whatever, it'd have a nice southern exposure. Let's get up on top of it. Okay, well now I'm standing on top of the rock wall. I'll get an exact set of coordinates for this with my GPS, but now from this vantage point, I don't see any additional terracing up this way. The mountain's pretty steep up that way. Fairly cleared out too. I don't see anything here, so I'm thinking this is that wall is probably a retaining wall, the high side of the road. So that is probably a road going down through there. There's something shiny down there. I'm gonna go down and see what that is. Could be something stupid like a Mylar balloon, but I'll go down and see what that is, and I'll wander around a little bit more, and then I think I'm about ready to head back. I'm gonna head back the easiest way I can I can find. I'm not going to necessarily follow the road. Here's a lower section of terracing of the road. Most of my video that I shot, I was standing up on top of this, so I didn't notice how much rocks were piled up here, but there's quite a bit of terracing here. And then there's that section up there higher up. I got that on GPS. And then there's this section, and then down there where my first LiDAR figure is, looking into the glare of the sun, there's a tree down there about 50 feet or so, 50, 60 feet laying, that's blown over. And that looks to me like more terracing now. The sun's in a little different spot than it was a half hour ago, so I'm seeing things a little differently now. So I think the first LiDAR figure is right down there. I think it's just more terracing. So whatever tenement house there was, which I think was described as a log cabin, I'm sure it's long gone. But there's that, and then there's this fairly substantial terracing here, and then there's the even bigger stuff up there. And all of this is within 1 to 200 feet of the old map. So this is definitely the site. And I'd say the reason all of this is nasty is because this was all cleared out once upon a time. And this is what happens in Shenandoah a lot. Cleared land, when it gets abandoned, you get all this thorny, nasty mess. And it probably would take a couple of 100 years for the trees to get big enough to, choke that stuff out, if it ever does. So anyway, I am gonna now, for real, head back towards the Pass Mountain Trail, which is this way. .2 miles into my hike. The elevation is 2280. I'm back out onto the Pass Mountain Trail. Here's the driveway. Here's where I went in, and it came out maybe, I don't know, up there right before the trail makes a bend to the right. I came out right about there because it was easier. So, and now let's see, the elevation here is about 2270. And from here back to my car is downhill all the way. Look at my trekking poles up against that tree. Man, that thing's big. Oh yeah. Wow, look at that. Oh yeah, and look at this right next to it on the other side of the trail. Another big one. This is a map of today's hike. The quadrangle name is Thornton Gap, 1994. And the purpose of this hike was to explore what I believe was a tenant house right here belonging to the landowner Andrew Jackson Clark. And the landowner's house was located right here. I've already explored that and posted a video on that. Huffman is a future hike that I'm going to do in this area. The last hike I posted was this one right here in Menifee. So there's a bunch of interesting places to hike here in this area right here. Now, the Clark land extended from, this is the eastern extent of his property, and way over here is the western extent. I parked here at the Piedmont picnic area. There's a pull-off and a gravel parking area here. And then this has been renamed. This says Turnbridge Trail, but it's now called Pass Mountain Trail. Come up here, you go through a little switchback there and up to the saddle area, which is located right there. And then you turn left and head west, climbing the mountain. I stopped in this area to show you the Clark Homestead spring. Continue climbing the mountain. Then when I got up in this area, I started looking around for evidence of an old driveway. I went a little past it, but then I came back and found it. And then this is kind of, the first half of this driveway is pretty tough going because of all the mountain laurel. Eventually it opens up, and I came down here and explored this area here. I found well, there's no house there anymore, but you can tell where the cleared areas were because it's all overgrown with thorny undergrowth and stuff. Found 3 different levels of let's call it terracing, rock wall terracing here. Got pictures of that stuff. And then back to my car. Now let me show you a couple of other things here. This is this map is Stony Man 1933, and right there is where the tenant house is shown. And here's the driveway. This is Pass Mountain Trail. Here's where the Clark Homestead was, and down here's where I parked. There's the Menifee. Over here's Huffman. This is the back side of the mountain, the Butterwood Branch. I'm going to check that out too eventually one of these days. All right, that's that. This is part of the appraisal that was done back in the 30s. And under improvements, down here, you can see it says tenant house. Log house, 14 by 36, 1.5 stories, planked with a shingle roof. They gave Mr. Clark all of $50 for that. And then finally, this picture was in the files. This is Andrew Jackson Clark at age 74 and his wife Alice Cora Clark at age 55. And the date on this is August 1937. So ended up being an interesting hike. The weather was cold, but it was perfect weather. Met some nice people along the trail. Ended up being 3.7 miles. with a total ascent of 971 feet. And that was the hike for today.